Hello, this is Yaakov Kronenberg from Jerusalem, and tonight another class in the series of classes on Sagittarius ascendant and Jupiter in the different signs. Tonight we're going to be doing Jupiter in Tauras. Jupiter in Tauras is sort of an interesting combination because it's, in a sense, the Jupiter is not in connection with the ruling planet. So like I said, when you have Jupiter there in Taurus, it's not going to be connected to the ascendant because they're 6 signs away, in one direction, 8 signs away in the other direction, right? So it's a death sickness type of relationship. I always explain the connection between Taurus and Sagittarius from the Torah, from the story of Abraham. God said to Abraham, get out of your land, leave Kasdim, and go to the land where I'm going to show you, and I'm going to make you great and wealthy and everything. So why do you have to say he's going to make him wealthy? Because if you look at the chart, if you look and say Adam Rishon's chart, the second house is Taurus, money. And the 8th house is travel, long journeys, Sagittarius, and so they have a 2-8 relationship. They have in other words, long journeys is 8 houses away from the house of money. So money dies. 8 is a symbol of death because the 8th house is the house of death. And so when a person travels far away, it's natural for him to lose his money. Right? A person, when he travels, they lose their money. I can tell you so many stories, because when you travel, you lose your connection with who you are. It's like I know I'm an immigrant to a foreign country. I've been here 35 years. In Israel, it's like when you come here, it's like you drop down on a foreign planet. People don't speak your language. You have no connections, you didn't go to high school here, you didn't go to elementary school, you have no friends, you have no family, you don't have a support system. It's like you're thrown totally off motivation, so it's a difficult, so the money, it's hard to have money when you go to a foreign country to make money. And all different reasons. I know a lot of people, say from Russia, when I first came here, I had a lot of friends who were Russian. And they were exiled when they left Russia. Russia wouldn't let them take any of their money out. And so you got all these, tremendously edgy, the Russians claimed that they have to confiscate all their property because they gave all these people a free education to be used by the state. Right? They gave you a free education in order that afterwards you would help the country. Now that you're leaving, we want our money back. So they took everything, and all these Russians, tremendously qualified people and stuff, they came over they came over basically broke, and they had to start over, not knowing the language, not knowing anything, and very, very difficult. Some people, they never recovered from it in a certain way. People who were scientists became janitors and all sorts of things, and so it can be sometimes a difficult combination, right? Because so with the Sagittarius ascendant, you'll have Jupiter in the 6th house, the house of servitude, the house of ill health. Going back to the Sagittarius ascendant, looking at that. So Jupiter will be in the 6th house, the house of ill health and stuff like that. So you'll have people that, it's an indication again of, always a Sagittarian wants to express itself through, So when you have Jupiter in Taurus, wants to express itself through Taurus. Sometimes it'll express itself through making money, express itself through the voice, through art, because Taurus is an artistic sign, right? And it rules the throat, it rules singing, right? People, Jupiter and Taurus, so they might want to communicate always the Sagittarius is, by nature, wants to communicate. It wants to be respected for their ideas, for their thoughts, to influence people, the thinking, and the influence of people by their communication, by their philosophy, and so wherever the Jupiter is going to be, it's going to try to express that Sagittarian nature. So a lot of times they'll try to express itself through the arts, right? Because the Taurus is one of the most artistic signs, especially singing, because Taurus rules the throat. And so now we're talking about that. Let's take a look at a chart tonight. I want to show a very famous man, voted one of the most 100 influential men of the 20th century. His name was Bob Dylan. And that was his stage name. His real name, of course, Jewish, Bob Zimmerman. And he was a singer, songwriter, had a big influence on the movement in the 60s, the alternative movement, and his songs became had a very big influence on the young people growing up at that time. And so if you look at his chart, he had also that combination. He has that, but his chart is a little bit distorted. So if you look at his chart closely, he's got actually a stellium, 4 planets in the sign of Taurus. So that's really we have the rule that's going to compete with the ascendant. So that's a difficult combination, because you have 2 signs that are very different from each other. Right? All those planets in Taurus don't agree with Jupiter, and besides with the Sagittarius ascendant, besides that, he's got 3 planets also in Gemini, which also don't agree with Taurus. So it's like a split. In a certain way, the chart is split because of the opposition from the 3 planets there. He's got the strong communicative thing, right? He's got the what sticks out in his chart right away, if you look at it, is he's got that Sagittarius ascendant with 3 main planets in Gemini: the Sun, Venus, and Mercury. Mercury rules his career chart, and it's conjunct to Venus and the Sun. So already you see the artistic sticks out already, because the planet that rules his career is Mercury, communication, is conjoined with Venus. That's the sign of the poet. We've seen that so many times in our classes. T.S. Eliot had it, William Butler Yeats, so all different famous people, a number of artists. I forget all, there was almost without end. And the Sun there brings also tremendous success, popularity. And it's in the 7th house, the house of the public. So the guy's is a natural performer, a natural communicator, wants to communicate, expresses his ideas. And then on the other hand, you have all those planets in the sign of Taurus. So which gives all those planets in Taurus give themselves up to his Venus. So in the end, he uses all those Taurus to come before the public and right, he's got that Mercury in honor, right? The Mercury is in honor. Eventually, all those planets in Taurus go to Venus, and eventually to Mercury. So his chart becomes his whole life was traveling. The man is a traveler, right? Because he's got everything in the traveling signs, right? In other words, he's got Saturn in. He's got the ascendant in Sagittarius and 3 planets: Sun, Venus, and Mercury in Gemini, the signs of travel. The 3rd, 9th is also the axis of travel. And so his whole life really became performing. He spent his whole life, even though his main fame was really in the 60s and the early 70s, and then he had a car crash, motorcycle crash, and he sort of became reclusive for about 8 years. And so you see that in his chart, because he's got 4 planets that, even though 3 of them are in the 5th house, which is again artistic and performing, they naturally work for the 6th house. And so you see, you can always predict some kind of like really bad some kind of health travels, the health suffering because of that. And he had that, and I think he once said he almost died from infection of the heart. But in any case, it can be difficult having 4 planets connected with the 6th house. In his chart, it's helped by again being to a certain extent working for the 5th house. And his moon there is connected with the Saturn. So he's not an easy man to get along with, right? And he's got a lot of difficulties in the chart also. But he was a tremendously successful man, had a big impact on his generation. And you see that in the chart. And really the main thing in his chart is you see those travel stuff. And I guess he combined the tauras with, his desire to sing and to perform, with also with the idea of traveling. And somehow put his life together like that he spends almost all his time traveling. And if you look at his 4th house, so his 4th house has Aries on the 4th house cusp, and the ruler is in the 3rd house, right, the house of travel, which is the enemy of the home, right? The 3rd house is the 12th house to the 4th house, and so when you have the ruler of the 4th in the 3rd, it means it's just hard to be at home. I know I have that aspect, and I'm always traveling, I'm always on the run. So, but when you have that aspect, the ruler of the 4th in the 3rd, it's not the greatest for the home life. There's going to be because you're going to be traveling a lot, right? The ruler of the 4th falls in the house of travel, and so he put his whole life basically on the road. He spent the last 40 years, almost every day performing on the road. And that's what sticks out most in his chart, if you look at it, all that travel aspects. And I thank everybody for listening.